Today we're going to show you how to make some custom Scrabble tile wall decorations. And actually this started out because my fiance Michelle has an obsession with Pinterest, and I came home the other day to my wall in my living room looking like this, with a bunch of stuff that she taped on the wall, and I knew right away my weekend was kind of committed to making this happen. So what she was looking for was Scrabble tiles that spelled out family, home, and love. Now, the numbers that she put on these tiles are not necessarily corresponded to the standard Scrabble tile. They had a significance to us and our family, like the F with a 6. There's 6 of us in our family. So you can customize those any way you want. You could certainly Google Scrabble tiles and you can see what the official number, the point score number, is for each letter, and do it that way. I'm going to show you basically how I did this, and just to give you a little preview, when it was finally finished, this is what it looked like. So these were roughly 5.5-inch square Scrabble tiles, and what I ended up doing was after they were routed, which they look like this, I sprayed them with a couple of coats of shellac and let it dry. And what that does is it seals up the wood. Then I used Marsh stencil spray paint, and I sprayed just the areas where the letters are, and I actually cut out a piece of paper with a square in it that was a little smaller than the tile, just so I wouldn't get overspray all over the place. I let that dry, and then what I did was I used a belt sander and I sanded off the surfaces of the tiles, and what that did was it took the Marsh spray paint off of the surface, leaving just the black that was in the routed out areas. So I think that came out really good, and I wanted to take the opportunity in this video to show you how I did it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Cut 2D. Now you can use Aspire or V Carve as well. I'm just going to show this in Cut 2D, and the fact that this is Pro is completely irrelevant. It'll work with the desktop versions also. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file, and I went to Lowe's and I bought a piece of clear pine that was exactly 5.5 inches wide by 8 feet long, and I'm planning to make each blank 7.5 inches in length, even though my finished tile is only 5.4 inches square. I do that so that I have some room at the top and bottom of each blank to clamp it down to the CNC. So my width here is going to be 5.5 inches. And again, you can make your Scrabble tiles any size you want. Just typically Scrabble tiles are square, so just keep that in mind. And make sure you have enough material on the workpiece to clamp it or fix it down to the machine. So we're going to do 7.5 inches for the height. And now what I did was the board I bought was 3/4 of an inch thick, but I ran it through my thickness planer because I made one blank to test the size on the wall at 3/4 of an inch, and it didn't look right for that. For 5.5 inches square, 3/4 of an inch just was too thick. So I ran it down and planed it to exactly 0.5 inches or ½ inch. I'm going to keep my XY in the center, and I do this because I'm going to center off zero the machine to the first blank, and I'm going to set up a stop on the CNC at the bottom and on the left edge. So all I have to do is put blanks in and clamp them down, and I don't have to re-zero each piece. It just saves a lot of time when you're doing a job that's very repetitive like this. And I'm going to work in inches. So what I'm going to do here first is we're going to establish the border of the tiles. And in this case, we are going to go 5.4 inches by 5.4 inches. Now, the reason I chose 5.4 is because my workspace is 5.5, and I didn't want to use the factory edge. I wanted to cut in a little bit all the way around, so I'm making my own edges with my end mill. So we are going to also radius the external 1/4 of an inch and click create. Now I need to put this rectangle in the center, so I'm going to select it. I'm going to select Align Selected Objects here, and the center one to center it in the workspace based on the XY0. So we're good there. So that's the finished tile size right there. Now, the next thing we need to do is create the actual letter. Now, what we're going to do is go to Draw Text tool, and now the word I'm going to spell out is family first, so I need an F. So I'm going to type F, and I want it to be bold. Now, the font typically used for Scrabble Tile is News Gothic, and I'm going to include a link to download that font if you're interested in that particular font. It's the one I found that was closest to what I needed. So I added that in, and I'm going to make the font size for this 4.5 inches tall. And I want to see what that's going to look like. So we're going to click apply, and there's my F, and I'm going to center that on the workpiece. There you go. And I like that. I like the way that looks. That's gives us a nice even space at the top and the bottom. Now, another thing you might want to do is the F leaves this whole area open, and this is where you're going to put the score number. So you want to try to look at the letters that you're going to be using and see which letter is going to be the widest at the bottom. And in this case, it's the M. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back here, and let's start with M instead of F. And so we're just going to change the letter. As long as it's purple and highlighted, the change will happen here. Now, the reason I'm doing that is I want to make sure when we position the score number that it doesn't interfere with the border or with the letter itself. Okay, so that looks good. So we're just going to leave it there, and we're going to click close. So we notice that there's a little kind of mess up here in the font. I don't know why it imported that way, but it's good to double check. I did notice as I was doing these, there was 3 or 4 different letters that imported with this kind of extra little thing here, which we have to take care of. It's actually pretty simple to do. We're going to click on the pointer, and we are going to right click on the line and click convert to curves. Then we're going to go back to the node editing button, and we're going to click on this, and you'll notice all these extra points here, which we really don't need in this case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these points, and I'm going to drag it to the center line. And then I'm going to take the other point, and I'm going to drag that to the center line right over the top of it, just like that. So you can see how they intersect. Now I don't need these points here, so I'm going to right click on this black point and click delete, and right click on this blue point and click delete. So now you can see I have a nice sharp area there for the bottom. Now I have some extra points here. I'm going to delete those as well, because all it's doing is it's making, this should be a straight line from the bottom, or this point of the M to the top here. So we're going to click on that, and if there's any extra nodes, we're going to get rid of them. All right, so we're going to get rid of that one, and we're going to get rid of this one here. And now you could see I have one node here, one node here, one node here. So everything's nice and straight, which is exactly what I want. And there's actually an extra one up here. We're going to get rid of that too. And now we're good. So there's the M. Everything is all set on that. So what we're going to do now is create the score number. Okay, so we're going to go over here to draw text, and for the M, we had 3 on the M, so I'm just going to put that in again. I don't know if that's the actual Scrabble number, so you could check it out online, but again, these had a significance to us and our family, which is why we did that. Now, the number is going to be pretty small here, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a single line font instead of a normal font for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to click. Now the reason for this is if I took this font and I shrunk it down real small to make the number 3 in here, and I'm using an 1/8 inch end mill, the distance between the 2 lines of the font are going to be less than 1/8 of an inch. Therefore, the end mill will not cut it. You know, if I try to pocket that, it won't cut it out. So that's a problem. So what we're going to do is use a single line font, and the font I'm going to use, which closest represents, and it is Helvetica. It's a 1L for one line. They also have a Helvetica 3 line. We're going to use the single line. And it's included with Cut 2D. So it came with the program. I didn't have to download that extra. Now, the height of the font that I'm going to use is going to be 0.9 inches. And the reason I'm using 0.9 is because I had already figured this out, and that's kind of what worked out best. So it's going to put the 3 in the center, and we're going to go over here and click the Move Scale Rotate button, and we are going to move this 3 down here to the corner. And I want to move it in such a way that I got to keep in mind it's going to be an 1/8 inch end mill that's going to come through here. So when the end mill cuts, I don't want it to hit this line, and I don't want it to hit the bottom of the end. So I'm going to try to center it between these two spaces as best I can. And when we do the toolpath calculation, we'll be able to preview it and see how it looks. Okay, so that's good there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to generate a toolpath for this, and we'll see what it looks like, and then we'll go back and I'll show you how to use layers to make the rest of the letters. So we're going to click on the toolpath tab, and we're going to pin it so it's there. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'll do this 3 to get that out of the way. So we're going to go to Profile Toolpath, and on my letters I pocketed out the letter of the big letter down 1/8 of an inch, and I pocketed the numbers down 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to leave that at 1/4 of an inch. We are going to select an 1/8 inch end mill that is going to run. We're cutting pine, so 25 millimeters per second is fine, and a 10 millimeter plunge rate is also fine. I've got this set to a 1/16 of an inch depth per pass. I could go 1/8 of an inch, do the full diameter, but just for the sake of, because I don't know what kind of material you're using, and my rule of thumb is always to set the initial depth of pass to half the diameter of the tool. So we're going to click OK, and you'll see that to go down 1/4 of an inch, it's going to make 4 passes on that. So I'm going to want to run it on the line because it's a single line font, and that's the whole point, is that it's just going to trace the center line. And so we're going to do that. We don't need tabs or ramps or anything, so we're going to click Calculate. And we're going to go ahead and preview this toolpath. And it's kind of weird the way it does it. It's got there's a starting point there, so it didn't do the 3 in one swoop, but it's fine. I'm also going to speed this up so we don't have to wait so long to look at the preview. So there's my 3. Now we're going to go ahead and going to click on the M, and we're going to pocket that out now. So we're going to click M. We're going to do a pocket toolpath. Going to choose the same 1/8 inch end mill. I want to just edit this and make sure. Yeah, and this was from a different tool, so we're going to go 25 and 10 and click OK. And you'll see we're going to go down 1/8 of an inch, and we've got 2 passes that it's going to make because it was set for 1/16 inch per pass. Now the pocket, to clear the pocket, I'm going to do an offset, which is basically going to run the end mill all the way around the outside, and then it's going to keep coming in and do it, as opposed to using a raster where it's going to go back and forth and pocket it out this way. I just prefer it. And we're also going to use conventional. For the end mill that I'm using, which is a 2 flute 1/8 inch regular carbide end mill, I tested it on the pine, and when I ran it in climb mode, it left a lot of frays on the top, but when I ran it in conventional, it still had a few frays, but it was better. The cut quality was better, so I'm going to leave it in conventional. It's pine. I'm not worried about ramp plunging at this point, and we're just going to click Calculate. Now if I do reset preview and preview all toolpaths this time, it's going to show me the number 3 and the letter M. So you can see that the end mill is not going to touch here, which is good. The last thing we need to check out though is the border. So we're going to click on the border, and this time we're going to do a profile toolpath. We're going to use the same 1/8 inch end mill, except we want to go all the way through the material. So I'm going to use a spoil board. Even though my board thickness is 1/2 an inch, I'm going to actually run this at 0.55. And we're going to go down a little bit. 1/10 of an inch deeper, so I have a nice clean cut on the bottom, and my spoil board is there to protect the bed of the machine. I am going to go outside the line this time because this is the actual size that I want. This is the finished size. So if I were to cut on the line, then the workpiece would be, the finished piece would be 1/8 of an inch smaller. It's taking a 1/16 of an inch all the way around. So we're going to go outside the line. Same thing, leave it conventional. We are going to use tabs this time because I don't want this piece popping out since it's going to be clamped in. I'm going to use a 1/4 of an inch tab that's 1/8 of an inch thick, and I'm going to do a 3D tab, which is kind of like a pyramid. I find them easier to clean off. We click Edit Tabs, and we're going to come over here. I'm just going to put one tab at the top and one tab at the bottom. Can't put tabs on the side because the end mill is actually going to cut that out anyway, so I don't need to worry about that. We're going to click Close, and now we're going to just calculate this. It's warning me that it's going to cut through the material because I'm going a little deeper than a 1/2 inch. And we're going to reset the preview and then preview all toolpaths again. And there you have it. There's the finished Scrabble tile. Now I have it set as a global fill color of black. I could change that to be anything I want, but since I'm going to be painting in black, I wanted to see what this was going to look like. So I can rotate this around. I can see it's cutting all the way through. Here are the tabs that I left to keep it clamped down, and we're in good shape. The 3 is not going to hit. It doesn't hit the letter, and it doesn't hit the outside. So this is exactly what I need. So we're in good shape on the M, and that one's all set. So what I'll do here now is I will actually save this toolpath. So we're going to click all of these. They're all using the same end mill on this machine. My Stepcraft is a Mach 2.3 millimeter ARCS processor. I'm going to select them all. Now it's also important to remember that the order in the list here is the order that we're going to cut. So it's going to cut the 3 first, then the M, then the profile, and that's what you want to do. You want to do the outside final cut last. Otherwise it breaks the material free, and you're relying on those 2 little tabs to hold the block in place while you're doing all this work. So always work from the inside out on your material. So I'm going to save that toolpath, and we're just going to call this the letter M and click Save. Now I'm going to go back and show you how to use the layers to create all of the other letters. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to show you how you could use the layers to save each letter. So now you can have one file with all the different letters. I mean, you could take the time, I suppose, to do the whole alphabet if you want, or you could just do the letters that are specific to your job. So in this case, what we're going to do first is select the outside border and the number. We're not going to select the M because remember we converted it to curves to fix that spot. So it's no longer editable as a text element. So we're going to create a new one. But we're going to highlight the border and the number, and we're going to right click and put copy to layer, new layer. And we're going to call the new layer, let's do the F now for family. And we're going to click OK. So in here, we're going to rename this layer 1 to M, so we know that that's the letter M. And now we have the letter F, which of course is a duplicate of M. So what we're going to do is click on this to make the F layer active, and we're going to click on this light bulb to hide the M. Okay, so now I've got the 3 and I got the border, so I'm in good shape there. Now I want to create another text element. So in this case, we're going to do F. We were at what were we, 4.5 inches for the letter height, and we were News Gothic in True Type. We got to find that font again. Let's see, News Gothic, and it was bold. I'm going to click apply, and there's our F, and we're going to go ahead and align it to the center of the workpiece. Now that's the F layer. Okay, so if we go back in now and we click this light bulb off for F, we can click this one on, and there's M. Okay, so M and F is there. Now what we need to do is change the number. For F we were going to use 1, so we're going to select the number 3, click on this and select 1. and it's automatically going to change, and it's going to stay in the same center position where it was, so we don't have to worry about repositioning letters anymore. So now there's F. F is all set. So while we're at it, we might as well make a layer. Let's do another letter just so I can show you, because now the F is an editable font or element. So we're going to select everything this time, and we're going to right click, and we're going to do copy to layer, add new layer, and let's do A this time. So we're going to click OK. We're going to go over here. There's our A. We're going to make A active, and we're going to shut F off. Okay, so now A is the active layer that we're working on. We are going to highlight the F, click on the font, the draw text, and just change F to A and click apply. Okay, and then we're going to click on the number, and we're going to make that, I don't know, in this case, let's make it 2 so you can see the number just stays there. But I think it's actually a 1 based on the layout that I have. Now this A also is messed up a little bit, like the M was. So we're going to click on the A, we're going to click convert to curves, and we're going to node edit, and you'll see we've got an extra node there that we're just going to delete, and we are going to take this node and move it to the corner, and we're going to delete this one, and there's our A. Okay, so now keep in mind that if we're going to copy to another layer, we can't copy this because the A is no longer editable as text. It's now a curve. It's a regular node editable as far as lines and nodes, but it's not an editable text. So you'd have to go back and grab the F and then copy to make the other layer. So now once you have layers made for multiple letters, the next thing you need to do is create a toolpath list. Now you could select each letter and then regenerate the 3 toolpaths and export that file. If you only have a couple letters, I guess that's fine. But if you were going to do the whole alphabet, or you were going to do a bigger project like I did, you're going to have multiple letters, there's actually a quicker way. Like say for instance, you're going to make these Scrabble tiles and sell them on Etsy or something. So you want to be prepared that you're going to get an order for any combination of letters to make words, right? So rather than have to go through and select all of these layers and then recalculate toolpaths and save files for G-code, you're better off to just put everything, do the work now, and create the letters and the numbers over here in the toolpath list. Then you can simply just select the ones you want, and then you could go in and save the toolpath for those letters. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. So right now, I have, for profile 1 is the number 3, right? So I'm going to double click on that, and I'm just going to change the name profile 1 to 3 and click calculate. So there's my number 3. Now I know I also have, all right, so I have other numbers. We'll get to that in a minute, how to do that. So the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to split the screen so it's easier to see. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to double click on the pocket, which is M, and we're going to change this, rename it to M. And we're going to double click on the profile tool 2, and we're going to call that border. So that's our border. And it's just warning us that we're going deeper. So there we are. Reset the preview, preview all toolpaths. Okay, and there we go. So there's our M, right? Now, the next letter we want to do was F. So we're going to activate the F layer, turn it on, and turn off the M layer. So there we go. We're going to reset the preview over here. Now we see we have a 1. So what we're going to do is right click on the 3 and click on duplicate. Now you can see it says 3 with 1 in brackets. We are going to double click that. We're going to select the 1, and then we're going to change the name of this to 1. Click calculate. So now there's our 1. Now M, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to duplicate the M. So there's M with 1 in brackets. Double click on it. We're going to select the F. We're going to change this to F and click calculate. And we already have the border, right? So now if I do preview visible toolpaths, there's my F block. And I can simply go in here and go to save toolpaths, and I can click 1 F border, and I can save that as a file for tile F. Okay, so now if I want to go back in, I'm going to just reset the preview so this side is blank. I'm going to turn off the toolpaths. Now we've got the letter A. So now in letter A, we've got we never finished A. So let's go to F. We're going to click on the border and the number, and we are going to put copy to layer A. So now when I turn off F and make A active, you can see now A has the border and the number. So A already uses 1. We already have 1. We have the border. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on F over here. We're going to duplicate F and double click it. We're going to change the name over here to A, and we're going to select the letter A and the inside. This was one we had to convert to curves, so it's not all one piece. So we have to make sure you click the inner and outer because you're pocketing. Otherwise, you won't get this center part of the A. Click calculate. Now what I want to do is I click the 1, the A, and the border, preview visible, and there's my A block. Pretty simple. And so I have one more letter in here. We'll just do the last one just for the sake of showing you on this video. So we're going to activate the I layer, turn off A. We're going to turn on I. We are going to reset the preview over here. Okay, so now I is also 1. So we're going to take the A layer, we're going to duplicate it. You could take any of the letter layers, by the way. It doesn't have to be A. I'm going to change the name to I. And I'm going to select the letter I because I forgot to do that. And I'm going to click calculate. Now I've got the I toolpath. So I'm going to select 1, I in the border, preview visible toolpath, and there's my I. So now I can go over here and I could select 1, I border, and save that toolpath. And there's my block for the letter I. So that's what I recommend. You'll have all the letters and all the associated numbers. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to create a demo file that I'm going to upload to the web, and I'll look at the notes on this video. It'll show you what the URL is, and I'll have all the letters in there with all the associated numbers, and you'll be able to just download the file, and they'll all be set for this dimension. And then of course you can change the thickness and scale, the size to meet your needs, but at least all of this will be done and all the toolpaths will be done on the side. And now this is I'm using a Stepcraft machine for Mach 2.3 arcs, but you could just choose a post processor for your machine. The G code doesn't care what machine it is as long as you choose your right post processor. The design is going to work across any platform, so you can feel free to download this file and download the font that I used for the letters, and you can use it on your own machine. And this is a Cut2D file, so you should be able to use it on V Carve as well as Aspire. Okay, so here's the blank I'm going to use to make my Scrabble tile. What I need to do is find the center point of it. It's 5.5 inches wide, so it's 2 3/4. And it is 7.5 inches long, which is 3 3/4. So there's my center point. Now what I'm doing here is I've got a board down that's going to be a sacrificial board for a spoil board. So when I pass the bit through the bottom of the workpiece, it's going to cut into this material. I put another board over on the side. This serves as my left guide, and I've got a rail in the front that's clamped down that serves as my front rail. So this way, when I'm doing multiple Scrabble tiles, I could just put it in, I line it up against here and the edge, clamp it down, and we're good to go. Now all I have to do is rerun the file, and I don't have to worry about re-zeroing the workpiece. So that piece is in there, it's all set to be cut. And when I'm done, I can just take this one off and put the next piece in, and I will show you that as soon as this one is cut. So what we need to do now is zero out the machine. And we're going to zero all and load that file. The first letter we're going to do is the I. So now we're all set on that center point. The material is held in and is firm. Now what we're going to do is start we're going to raise up the Z a little bit. We're going to turn on and we're going to start the job. And there you have it. There's the eye all set with the number. It's all cut around. We broke the tabs off on both ends and we're all set. So now if we want to start the next letter, we just grab our next blank, place it right in the machine against the front guide, and we lock it back down with our clamps. And since we're lined up against two guides, we don't have to re-zero the machine. So now that the piece is in, when I start the next job, it's automatically going to go and start right from the center of this board without me having to measure it out or having to re-zero the XYZ. And there you have it.